Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad back, and it's great to be with all of you as always. So cheers to all of you out there who are endeavoring to try and understand the blockchain and crypto space. Guys, today is a little different. I'm going to be doing a very general news session with you, but I'm going to really try and focus on news that was hard to find and sort of lighten it a bit. So my theme for today is actually positive news for the crypto space, which is better than the gloom and doom we might be seeing at the altcoins at the moment. But I'm also going to go through and talk you through those bits of information and those news articles, and I've made a whole heap of notes as well for each one. So I've got about 15 of those articles to go through, and at the end I've just got a bit of a fun finisher with a family that have risked it all and have betted on Bitcoin. So cheers guys, and let's get started. So guys, the first article, as you can see on the screen, it was actually basically looking at all the benefits in general of the crypto space, and particularly in terms of investing. So I just want to go through about 6 reasons why it may be valuable to invest in some stage in cryptocurrency and blockchain generally as a whole. So here they are. Number 1, profit. There's an obviously increasing profit that's happened recently. And also ever since the blockchains evolved from generation 1 blockchains. So there's every reason why that to be valuable. 2, education. Basically, as we know, there's a growing amount of education in the space, and as I've said, since we've moved away from the Satoshian style of generation 1 blockchains, which is essentially just that peer-to-peer network, there's a lot of education that we can do via this method and many others to inform ourselves, and that also further cements that it's a real deal in terms of an economic value, because there are many people who are now able to study that even as far as university level courses. 3, the Asian influence. Now respectfully, I just want to put a disclaimer. I'm not trying to focus specifically on any particular culture, but there's no question that within the Asian domain they are often very pro-risk when it comes to investment in comparison to many other regions. And for that reason, this is a really exciting industry to be in, because the Asian market particularly really generates a lot of application, and they utilize the technology perhaps better than anywhere else in the world anymore, and more than anywhere else in the world as well. Number 3, there are some really big players in the market. Another reason to be involved in this is that you have companies like Microsoft, IBM, and the list goes on and on and on in terms of major corporations who have jumped on the bandwagon. Surprisingly, perhaps not too many that know the space, JP Morgan is a huge investor in blockchain, despite what Diamond says. And number 5, there's a very strong tech, and you guys know from my previous podcast that I'm really focused a lot on the technology as part of the reason why I invest. It's not the only reason. And the technology is cutting edge. It's coming from some of the brightest minds of the world at the moment in terms of technological advancement for economic applications and also for industrial applications. In many ways, you could argue that it's like a small revolution, or perhaps a large one, depending on how you look at it. And finally, evolution. Just in the whole process of technological advancement and general advancement of our own species, it's an evolutionary thing. So this is just one little aspect of the industrial evolution that we've seen ever since we have developed. So there are some key reasons that came out of that article. Let's go to the next one. So as I said, the focus today, guys, is on positive news, so let's get stuck into article number 2. So number 2, the notes I made, this is all about the question of, will China regulate its cryptos? Now, as you know, guys, there's a lot of drama happening at the moment in terms of altcoins, and Bitcoin is absolutely firing. So if you do hold Bitcoin, congrats, you're doing really well. But this was actually raising the question of, what's going to happen with China? Are they going to regulate? So this is the crux of these articles. Basically, virtual currencies. The idea here, the article explained, was that China's position is that yes, they will regulate, and yes, they're going to acknowledge the legal position of both Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. However, they're going to regard it a little bit differently to many other countries, like my country, Australia. Their view is going to be that it's a virtual property that's its allocation in terms of its legal definition. So to be clearer, there was a general principle of civil law that was sort of cemented by the People's Bank of China, and it included specific crypto rules. And within those rules was this specific legislation that said that from the 1st of October, all virtual currencies or all digital currencies are going to be deemed virtual property. So essentially, since this month, guys, it's had that legally backed position, in Bitcoin included in China, that they are actually legally recognized as virtual properties. So I thought that was really valuable, guys, because a lot of these sites I found are actually from Chinese sites that I've translated via Google Translate. And I found that by doing this kind of research this way, it provides me with an insight into sort of the mentality of the crypto researchers and the crypto space in China, which I really do need to know, being a proponent of NEO. But also, there's a lot of good quality research for most of us as crypto consumers. And finally, one of the things that they said in this article was that the reason for the outcome of the ban will be a reduction in the number of exchanges. And that's important to know. So if you want to know specifically in the Sino space and the Chinese space, from this article suggesting that there will be a reduction of about 2 or 3 exchanges, and they'll all be licensed, and the likelihood of OKCoin and Huobi being part of them is very strong. So guys, that was some positive news I thought that you might want to know with regard to the legal position China has with cryptocurrencies. Now the next one I wanted to get to was a very interesting article, and it was about, again, as I said, looking at the law of cryptocurrencies and where that all fits in. And it continued on to basically say what I'd said before, and that there's a virtual value for cryptocurrencies within the scope of the legal system in China. So guys, if you want to look more into it, I'm going to leave all of these websites in the links below. So check them out down here. If you happen to like and you happen to sub, awesome, cheers guys. But I'll do it in order as well from my presentation. So guys, if you want to check that one out, it just cements more of what I was saying about the legal stance that China has. And then we're going to look at the Gates Foundation. So what I found from this research was that Bill Gates and Melinda as well, through their foundation, have basically designed a thing called Mojaloop. Now I hope I pronounced that correctly. And what that is, that's known as a block-based mobile payment solution. And it's a decentralized, immutable, interoperable system in which it uses interledger protocol via Ripple. Yeah, and many of you I know probably aren't proponents of the Ripple system because it is quasi-centralized. But what is very interesting about this is it's utilizing technology to provide a solution for what were previously centralized modalities and modes for the mobile market. So this is about mobiles, it's about accessibility for, for someone, say for example in Africa, who previously couldn't access information. Mojaloop is a permissioned method that Gates is using to facilitate access. So it's something to know about, and perhaps it may not be regarded as positive news, but it no doubt is making news in China, so I thought it's really going to be beneficial for you to know about. Now this is really cool information. I was really excited to share this particular article, and as you can see, the title says Chinese search giant Baidu joins Hyperledger blockchain consortium. So guys, in previous videos I've actually talked at length about the importance of understanding enterprise blockchains and consortium blockchains. Well, it's never really been more important than the climate right now, because more and more people are starting to understand the importance of not only Oracle data input and off-chain data translators and products like Coco that I previously mentioned, but they've also recognized the importance of permissioned blockchains as a whole. They are really important because that's what provides trust for many big businesses and small businesses to utilize the entire blockchain. And as many of you would know, Ethereum is the predominant blockchain at the moment that people are putting faith in from a business perspective. But when you find out something like this is a huge thing, guys. This means that the search engine Baidu, which is the largest and most predominant in China, is now forming a part of a very large consortium. This consortium, called Hyperledger, It actually has presently around 160 businesses within that consortium or that collective, and for there to be a Chinese one involved in this is really significant. It's also even more significant because on-chain, which is the private and permission blockchain that's sort of indirectly affiliated with NEO, it is also a member of Hyperledger, which is massive. So if you're not familiar with Hyperledger, basically it's underpinned by IBM through its Linux, through the Linux Foundation's open source system and code. And from there, I thought I'd just share with you, Baidu Vice President, he made a comment. And this is what he said. His name is Zhang Zhuyang. And he said that blockchain could help better tailor its search preferences according to its users' needs. Now that's not very exciting, but again, they're talking about that in connection with Hyperledger. So it's, from my position as a pro-NEO, a sort of blockchain investor, I really am excited about that because it's significant. Okay, the next one, guys, I don't want to talk too much on any particular one because you guys know I can really talk. I really like this article, so I thought I'd throw it in. Title, China joins the blockchain race with China Ledger Alliance. Basically, I think it's just important to know that the Internet Securities Commission of the Securities Association of China is really taking this quite seriously. They're now looking at how they can forge alliances within China, much like these consortiums. And because they are forging these kinds of things, I thought it was important that you know that China, within the sort of their propensity to close off things once they get an idea of a really good system or of a really good business model, this is also means in which they're doing it internally. So it was quite interesting. Okay, the next one I really wanted to talk about was the Aussie Stock Exchange. Now, led by Danielle Zetho, who is the chief of FinTech, what is really interesting, and I learned this also from a recent presentation of the chief executive of Consensus, is that the Australian Securities Exchange is actually experimenting right now to utilize blockchain technology to underpin the entire securitized system or shares network of our country. So if anything is more important, let me know. But seriously, for my country's economy, the fact that they're going to be utilizing blockchain, it's cutting edge, it's exciting, it shows that we are truly progressive as a nation. So if you want to know more about that, I thought it was cool. And just to add to that was this next article. And this next one was a very interesting article. Now, again, the translations are pretty weird. Like you can see it says Bitcoin instead of Bitcoin. But what I learned from that was that it just cemented the role in which Australia is playing in the blockchain industry, in that the Reserve Bank of Australia right now is, and they've done this for some time, but they're even more serious now, is actually seeking to try and establish a digital currency. And what they plan to do, and as I said, this is all being led by people like Danielle Zetho, who's the chief of FinTech. They're trying to establish a one-to-one dollar value. So that being that it's sort of going to be a replication of all the fiat that we already have. And I know that Japan's looking at this with the J-coin, but I just thought, given that there was a recent publication that Vitalik put out, or someone wrote about him discussing digital currencies as, you know, a long-term project for many countries. Well, Australia is actually one that is really taking this seriously, and they're working towards some sort of digitization of perhaps you could argue the fiat. It's because it's going to be designed to be similar. So I thought it was really cool. So again, focused on positive news for Bitcoin and blockchain. For cryptocurrency and blockchain. This was really interesting, and anyone who's a proponent of Bitcoin will like this one. Basically, it was explaining that for the very first time, a company called Payments 21, through their payment media sort of section of the company, they were approved a very important license. And what that license was about was essentially a BitDollar compliant business license, which means that they have, using their KYC, or Know Your Customer, and your AML, which is your anti-money laundering requirements, they were able to then become a fully functional business within Switzerland, so they could then, so people or companies could then operate utilizing what essentially is the very first sort of business license that they've been seeking. And apparently from the read that I've done, they were seeking that for over a year. So that's really awesome news coming from Switzerland about the cryptocurrency space. Okay, the next one I want to talk to you about, I'll just scroll up, guys, so that you can see. This one was about Qtum, and I know a lot of people out there are sort of they're quite ambivalent about Qtum, or they haven't really made up their mind. And I totally understand that, given that there are other main chains that are significant in China. But I thought you might appreciate some positive news about it anyway. And I learned that there was this company called Wireline, and basically there's it's to do with the Wireline cloud application has been launched using or in support of Qtum. So the aim was to build the world's largest ecosystem. And as we know, there's many there's a lot of advocates out there for that to become established as the decentralized internet. But Wireline essentially is trying to be part of that ecosystem's construction. And it's based on microservice transactions that an enterprise can use to create and test dApps, or digital applications. And so what they've tried to do is they tried to work with Qtum through its main chain capacity to build out this. So I thought it was some positive news for Qtum, and I've noticed a few things coming up with them. Inc. Also something to mention is building a global cultural asset economy using Qtum. So if you haven't heard of Inc., check them out. They are also, I think, in the next post, so I'll just jump over there. So you can see them there. If you want to know more, don't forget they're all in the links below, guys, because you probably won't find these as easily through the sort of the English websites. So I wanted to go over a couple of things for that. Inc. is a protocol. It's a decentralized solution for things like cultural industries, sovereign affiliates, trusted public blockchains, and cross-chain interaction. So why is this important? Well, basically, their argument is that it's based on enterprise. It allows it allows for this company, through its work with Qtum, to easily build dApps within their facilities. So if that means that it also makes Qtum easier to use and more usable, user-friendly, then it's all just good to know for anyone who happens to have an investment in that, or if they are thinking about it. I personally don't have a lot of Qtum, but I've noticed a few positive articles about them, and I just wanted to throw them in. Okay, guys, the next couple of articles I really wanted to share with you today. First one is not about Australia. It looks like it is, but it's just the Australian's newspaper here. It's a very well-respected one. And basically, I was excited by this article because it's talking about Google potentially building a city in Toronto for its as a test or pilot city for innovation and invention. The reason why that piqued my interest so much, I wanted to share as a positive thing, is because Toronto, if you don't know, is a technological hub of not only Canada but the world. It's one of those key locations around the world that people need to be know about, a bit like the Silicon Valley or Shanghai in China, or Seoul in Korea. It is a really important place for innovation and technological advancement, and right now there's so much being thrown at the blockchain industry itself there. I just thought it would be good for you to know that Google's potentially looking at building out part of their city. Okay, so that's the next one I want to move on with is, let's get stuck into this one. I love to throw in Neo news, and I have to be honest with you guys, I struggled to find much Neo news, whether it be in China or the wider world, simply because, and it's important I suppose we talk about this now, it seems like things have gone a little bit quiet in the Neo office, in that, there's, all different Chinese whispers, sorry about bad analogy, but there's perhaps, a lot of rumors going on and a lot of FUD, whatever's going on, I'm not really sure, but what I do notice is that there's a tendency right now for Neo to be still and to be silent rather, and my inference is that's got a lot to do with supporting the government's position right now, having had the conference, having had the Congress meetings, having had various private closed door sessions with key stakeholders in the government or private sector. I've really noticed that they're quiet at the moment, and perhaps for good reason. So getting onto this one, what I wanted to just explain was that the crux of the article was that October essentially has been a very volatile and flat month for Neo. And to inject a bit of positivity, there was a quote directly from this article saying, NEO prices will not remain at this level. When Bitcoin retraces, and the argument here is that that's likely, I personally agree, because that's just the way in which it fluxes through in the market. And when it has such a significant bull run like it's just having or had, then as we know from previous events, it's likely that there is going to be that retracement. And when that happens, typically NEO is bolstered by that move. And I was wondering, I've been wondering why that's so, that pattern continues. And what I'm hypothesizing right now is that often when the price seems to be going up at Bitcoin, people are saving a great deal, jumping in and purchasing their Bitcoin, which is very prudent to do. But they're also using it as a savings mechanism for other altcoins. Because essentially, what is really cool about Bitcoin is that it works as, despite it being an asset currency rather than solely an asset or a currency, it acts as a means of currency for altcoin purchases. And often people are maximizing the benefit of their purchase if Bitcoin's going up, so they can then go and buy a great deal of altcoins at a good price. So I've just noticed that happens a bit with NEO. Again, I'm a novice investor in all of this, and I'm just trying to understand the space. So guys, if you have some ideas of what I'm saying and you want to improve my information, certainly leave a link in the leave a comment down below, because I always respond and I always respect what you have to say. Okay, so just something to consider on that one. The next bit of positive info on NEO was one of just a little bit more of information I found. So again, it was hard to find. This was published on the 22nd of September. I found it really hard to find stuff that was really current. I could find stuff from months ago, but this was the best I could do this week, given that I've got kids and today's the weekend, and trying to give you guys as much information as I can. So, this is the key things I found from this article. Firstly, it goes on to explain some positive stuff, like it was China's first open source blockchain. They state that NEO was China's most successful encrypted digital currency, as I was saying before. Some other key points, it says that DA believes that regulation is the key to sustaining development of financial technologies in China. And he explained also that he's committed to the smart economy ecosystem, not cryptocurrency markets. And so guys, that's really important, and I'm going to be talking a bit more in detail in a moment with a presentation by Malcolm Larimer. And he's a key and core part of NEO right now. He's come over and he lives in China now. But what I just wanted to really impress upon anybody who's not quite understanding how NEO works, NEO itself is an ecosystem, and I know I use that word a lot and other people do, but it really is. It's designed as with lots of interrelated components, many different things like NeoX, Neo Message, NeoFS, and the list goes on, how it's all interconnected. But what is really important to understand is that the actual token itself, when you purchase a NEO, you're not actually buying a cryptocurrency. And I know that seems really strange because, on the top level you are, because that's what it's put inside. But in terms of the construct of NEO and what it was designed for and what the entire team are trying to sort of educate people about, is when you buy it, you're actually buying what they call a symbol of integrity. You're buying a potential for governance. You're buying potential for growth of an entire ecosystem. So when you purchase it, what you're hoping for is for this ecosystem to build itself out, to really flourish, because the more it does that, the much greater the value of this token, this representation, or this data reflection of the company or chunk. It should be an indicator of the quality of the overall ecosystem at any given point. So as it expands and builds, so too will your own, the money in your bank. Okay, so let's move on. Some of the other key points was that there are other NEO rivals, but this was really controversial, I thought, especially coming from an article written in China. This is what it said. It said, other NEO rivals may either be banned or have to operate through NEO. So that was really interesting, because right now there are about 3 or 4 main chains that have been, post-ban have remained strong in the Chinese market, and they are Qtum, Metaverse, obviously we have NEO, and then we have Warrants and a few others perhaps. But guys, those 4 are the ones really to explore and understand, because from what I can gather, there are going to be some interconnections, and there is a capacity for them to work together through cross-chain interoperability. Hey guys, sorry, I just had some issues with the camera, but let's get back to Malcolm Larider. Just have some coffee. So guys, basically, I found this article really cool because, well, what I mean is I found this YouTube really cool because whilst it was really hard to find some information, when I finally found it, there was a little bit of gold, and that was this YouTube for Neo. Malcolm Larider is a key developer within the Neo team. He's recently moved over and he speaks fluent Chinese. He's a really interesting guy. I've tried to contact him a few times, but what I learned from this presentation, it was all about the consensus algorithm. It was explaining the difference between Neo and gas, and I've tried to explain this before, but maybe the way in which Malcolm explained it could help you better understand it, and you might get some value out of that in terms of if you are an investor in Neo or if you want to understand Neo better, so that you know perhaps you can understand why they've designed that such a way, in case you're concerned about their consensus model or if you're concerned about their split in their token structure. So guys, this is what I learned. Basically, his intent was to clarify Neo, gas, and consensus nodes, and these are the key points. Basically, gas, as I previously said, it's a utility function. It's designed solely to be a utility, and if you want to think of it at the smart contract level, gas is what fuels smart contract in terms of they service them. That gas is used to append a smart contract onto the blockchain. So in every sense, gas is that utility component of this token structure. Now, on the other hand, you have Neo, and Neo is what they call a governance token. And what Malcolm explains is that it's actually designed to maintain the integrity of the system. So we're going to look into what exactly he's talking about. But essentially, it's about maintaining the overall functionality of the ecosystem itself so that everything works together. And as I said previously, if you do purchase Neo, you're actually investing in the sustainability and into the productivity of the ecosystem. So that means that the more and more businesses append to it, the more that it's utilized from a very pragmatic and real world sense, the more you're going to benefit from this in terms of financial gain. So these are the things that he said Neo is not. And this was really interesting. He said Neo is not an altcoin. Controversial, but it makes sense when we're thinking about ecosystems. So I'm trying to encourage people to think more about these kinds of main chains as eco tokens, because essentially, trying to encourage people to think of the token as an eco token, in that it's an ecosystem driven token. And there are a few others like this. For example, Icon Foundation has had another eco token for its robust ecosystem plan. Metaverse, eco token. Ethereum, a huge eco chain. And also, just on that note, if you haven't really delved into Ethereum deeply, check out Bo from Cryptocurrency Australia's recent post. He did a really in-depth and very high quality video about how Ethereum works, and he really considered all the different facets, not just the public aspect, but also the private aspect of Ethereum's underpinning design. So check out his recent post today. It was very good. So on top of that, he also said, this is Malcolm, he said that Neo is not a dApps platform and smart contract. Now, what he's actually saying is it's not specifically that. It's designed to have them append onto the network, but it's not solely just a dApps facilitator. And many would regard Ethereum as that, but it in itself is also evolving into something far more robust than just that as well. So it's not an altcoin, it's not a crypto. That's what another thing he said. That's important. Malcolm said that it's not a crypto. Now, for that to be said, you're going to have to qualify that. And again, what he's saying is it is a token in which it maintains the integrity of the overall architecture and the overall system that is Neo. So to put it in a sort of in Neo speak, what Neo is, it is the token for a smart economy. It is designed to be the symbol, the functional key to represent or data point for all of the smart economy itself. I found that really interesting. So Malcolm went on to explain in his presentation that NEO is essentially a global project, and that the idea is to achieve the smart economy together. So you've got autonomous groups like the City of Zion, which is basically a lot of devs who are unpaid for the most part, who get together and they try and nut out big issues within the NEO technological space. And then they get rewarded because, as I said previously in a different video, there's allocations of funding set aside from the NEO core team to then support these kind of ventures. And I think that's fantastic because they're doing it, they're trying to foster and support grassroots initiatives like the COZ. So it was really cool that Malcolm mentioned that it's designed to be a global initiative. The main aims, and this has come forth from this release, is that they want to remove obstacles and hindrances to ensure mass adoption. And to do that, you know, they want to make sure that people understand the power of this token, I suppose, because the more we recognize that as a utilitarian, functional, real-world applicable token, the more we understand the imperative for it to be used in the real world. So whilst, you know, people like you and I might be purchasing it for an investment, which is more the case than most people are utilizing it for now, which is a mode of transaction for business, as by default that happens through the necessity of it as an modality of exchange, we're going to find that for the investors, they're going to really benefit you know, as the uptake is, you know, becomes more predominant in the real world. Okay, so in terms of consensus nodes, what they do is represent agreement. And I really liked what he had to say here. So if you're a bit familiar with how things work in terms of generation 1, 2, and 3 blockchains, basically there's the difference of these. You've got proof of work, then you've got proof of stake, and now you have other consensus models and algorithms that are sort of variant in nature, but functionally they do something very similar. So here they are. At the bottom layer you have the proof of work, and that's akin to the Bitcoin system, and that's designed to be competition based or meritocracy. And based on game theory, so that, you know, essentially, you know, you compete to try and release through cryptographic algorithms to try and release data and release tokens via the blockchain for, you know, if you're a miner. Then you had the proof of stake, and in that sense what Malcolm's explaining is that is basically a betting or a staking design, so that, you know, probabilistically you were trying to bank on there being an inroad into the blockchain so that you could utilize it efficiently. That's eliminated through NEO as well. So what NEO have done instead is much more practical, in that through their delegated Byzantine fault tolerance protocol, which is one of the best that's out there, the consensus is designed to be amicable, in that it's designed via suggestion. So there's no financial gain, incentive or gain for a change in view of, you know, perhaps, you know, for example, if you are thinking of it from a consensus perspective, if you want to go and, you know, alter anything, arguably you could go and change the view, and that would be fine. Well, in this system, you can, and if that's not approved by the consensus holder, then you can just go to a different block, and it's really amicable. It just flows to another option. And for the process of consensus, there's no financial gain. And that filters all the way to master nodes, which I found very interesting. What Malcolm was explaining, even though he uses the terminology of consensus nodes, he's talking about how the nodes themselves, or particularly master nodes, don't have any financial gain for anyone to have that number of NEO. And that's simply because when you unpack it, it actually runs at a cost to represent the system in such a way. So in a nutshell, don't worry if you're not a master node, you know, holder, if you don't have enough to create a node. There aren't that many nodes in the design of the ecosystem anyway, and what matters is that you have, if you are a NEO holder, you have as many of the actual ecosystem data points, and that's the token itself. So guys, I found that really interesting. And finally, what he was saying was that, to recap, NEO is the token to represent the maintenance of integrity, gas is the utility, and again, it all rests with the uptake within the wider real-world space. So this is designed for a real world, it's designed for a real smart economy. It's not designed to be a virtual a virtual currency in a virtual world, if that makes sense. Many cryptocurrencies presently, we perceive them virtually because there's no real world context. But Neo, in many different facets of its design, is already infiltrating this real world market. And I mentioned that at length in different ways how they are doing that. And finally, some current tips I really wanted to share with you. I just wanted to finish off today. So thank you so much and cheers for listening to me, guys. It's been a really interesting time, as always. Just for a bit of tips of what I'm looking into at the moment in the future, I really just wanted to share with you a couple of things I'm looking at the moment. I'm interested in Affiliate. I don't know a great deal of it so far, and I have to admit, but I just wanted to let you know I am looking into it. It doesn't mean I'm going to invest in it because I'm not a pumper and a dumper. I don't believe in that shit. I just wanted you to know about it because it's obviously going to be on the Neo platform or the Neo blockchain, and I wanted to know why, because they typically are quite careful with the companies in which they allow to append on their blockchain, since the ban particularly. So if you want to check out the white paper, there's the white paper, guys. It's not as robust as what I would like it to be, but it does have some good information. But here's the thing I do like so far. And the thing I do like is the interconnection with a company called Applied Blockchain. And I can't actually scroll up to show you there, but here's your team. It's not a really big team, but it's substantial enough to be taken seriously. But what I did is I went and researched that, and I wanted to know exactly how many years of experience they've had and what sort of the products that they represent. And they have a good product base, and they are solely focused on providing private and public solutions for blockchain. So given that, and given their objective in conjunction with what they're planning to do with on the Neo blockchain, guys, it's worth just checking out this site because it may lead into research that I don't know, and it certainly may lead you into considerations for Affiliate. As I said, I have not invested in it, but I like to look at all of the prospective investments that Neo is part of. And to finish off today, just for a bit of positive news, because as I said to you guys, I wanted to finish on a positive. So this is actually for, excuse me, this is for a family in a European country who decided to bet it all on Bitcoin. And I was really, really inspired by that. I have a young family myself, and I'm not going to go and do that, obviously. That's really gutsy. But it just shows that in the climate that we're in today, it's an exciting time. So much so that there are some radicalists out there who really want to shake the game up, and we know that the designers of the very technology are some of them, but then there are consumers as well. So cheers to you guys, and cheers to you as well for listening, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and until next time, guys, it's BlockchainBrad. I hope this has been informative, and I'll get into some deeper stuff in the next video. Cheers.